So, Debbie, what incentives and commissions do you believe a BDM should be paid?
Incentives and commissions, I think as a business owner, you first need to work out why you're introducing incentives and commissions. So what's the purpose of incentives and commissions?
So for most businesses, I actually think that they introduce it because it's just what you do. It's the way that BDMs are supposed to be paid. They're supposed to get a week's rent, or that's what it seems to me to be. It's just a done thing. I don't know if there's actually a real purpose behind it.
Okay, well, you're kind of half right, and that's an industry expectation, but it's a pretty simple answer, is you're introducing incentives and commissions to drive performance. The harder you work, the more business you bring in, the greater that you're going to be remunerated. And that's the mindset of a lot of salespeople. They don't like being capped at a wage. So we're introducing incentives and commissions to increase performance. Now, over the 30 odd years that I've been in the industry, I have seen just about every single incentive and commission model possible. My advice would be, most importantly, keep it simple. I've seen a number of agencies that make it so complicated that the accounts person has to sit down for half a day just to work out how much the team member needs to be paid. The other thing which, and I'll say critically important, and a lot of agencies get it wrong, is you need to set up your commission and incentives based on dollar increases, not property increases, not numbers. So more on profits rather than numbers. And when I do my coaching and my training sessions, particularly with building the rent roll and activities and strategies, I ask the question, put your hand up if you've established a growth goal over the next 12 months. And I would say 95% of the time, their feedback of their growth goal is, we want 50 net new properties, or we want 100 net new properties. Yep. And that's a really big business mistake. So I'm going to get you to help me do a little maths here.
Oh no! Yep.
No, you don't have a calculator that you can go to, and I'll make it simple. I'll make it simple. Okay, so let's say that an agency has come to the end of the month and they're sitting down and looking at their performance, and they brought 10 new managements in.
Yep.
10, and they lost 5 managements. Yep. So at the end of the month, how did they perform?
The net plus 5.
A net gain of 5 properties?
5 properties.
Are you sure?
Yeah, they brought in 10, lost 5, yes.
Yeah, okay. Just keeping you on your toes, keeping you on your toes. So, and this is how a lot of, as I said, agents do it. So they bring in 10, they lose 5. Some agencies actually, for example, might pay a commission of $100 for every net gain property for the month. So that BDM at the end of the month gets how much in commission?
500.
500?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So you're getting more confident now.
More confident, yeah.
So 10 in, 5 out, and then they also give the team a pat on the back, say, awesome job. We have just grown the rent roll by 5 properties.
Yeah.
But what happens if, and I'm going to make this simple maths for you.
Yep.
So the 10 properties that we brought in were $100 per week.
Yep.
So how much are those 10 properties worth?
1,000.
1,000? 1,000.
1,000 a week.
Okay, the 5 that we lost were $500 a week properties.
Yep, so that's 2,500. So we lost more than we brought in.
Okay, so we've got a net gain of 5 properties, but that's 1,000, 2,500. So we've gone backwards 1,500 plus we've paid out $500 as an incentive, and we've created labour to manage 5 more properties. So really important that your commission or incentives is based on a dollar value. Now, how you can do that, you can still go back to the numbers. So let's say that you want a net gain of 50 properties for the year. And I'm going to make this simple as well. Then what you do is you get your average rent and multiply it by your net gain. So average rent, let's go
$500 a week.
Are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so what did we say? What did we say?
And 10% management fee.
No. Okay, so now we want 100 net gain in property. Our average rent is 500. So what's our dollar value for
500,000.
Are you sure?
No, absolutely not.
So
50,000.
So we want 100 properties.
100, yep.
I'll take you back to maths.
Yeah,
we count the zeros. How many
50,000.
How many zeros in 1,000?
There is 3 zeros in 1,000.
How many zeros in 500?
2.
So what's 5 zeros?
500,000.
Is it?
Yes.
I don't
It
even
is,
know.
It is.
It's not.
It is,
It's
it's fine.
50,000. Anyway.
Yeah.
We're okay. Lucky we're good chatters. I think they get the gist of you want your net gain times the
Average weekly rent.
average weekly rent. So your new goal now, I'm just going to go with 50,000.
Okay. Just increase bottom line by 50,000.
Or let's go with we need to bring in 10,000 in rental income per month. So we've got to switch our mindset and switch our goals for growth from numbers to bottom line dollars. And then on your whiteboard, you can have the little thermometer that's got 1,000, 5,000, 15, 20,000 instead of numbers, because then if you start to have a mindset of working smarter, not harder, you can go, look, I can take on 50 properties at $1,000 per week and still achieve the same outcome. The other thing with commission, and it gets a little bit tricky, is, I mean, if you've got the property manager doing your BDM, it's fine. But not only, I think you should have incentives for growth, you should have incentives for retention. Particularly if you've got a BDM that's out there, having a chat, doing lunches, being very social, and the engine of the business, which is the property management team that are doing all the work, are going, well, look, the BDM keeps giving us new business and we're doing all the hard work. Look at introducing incentives to retain the business. So it could be saying to the property management team, okay, if you're using numbers, which I don't like numbers, if you're sitting at 400, as soon as we get to 450 properties, you get a $2,000 bonus. Or at the moment, we're sitting at an income of $10,000 a month. Once we get that to $15,000 a month, you'll get a bonus, because that could be the difference of retaining a potential loss management, because you might be sitting at 14,000 and the whole team wants to get to 15,000 to get that bonus. So if the landlord's unhappy, the property manager might work a little harder to actually retain the business. Now, there's so many different incentives. I actually do a coaching session where there's about 15 different types. But in closing, I just want to share one that I heard from, it was a really large agency about 3 or 4 years ago that I loved. And very, very quickly, they based it on best practice, where labour to income is 30%. So you generate 100,000, it's 30,000 for wages. So what they determined, and they got agreements written up professionally, was they would pay their property managers 30% of the income. No wage, just 30% of the income. And they had a leasing division. So they really looked and analysed the business from a financial perspective. So the leasing business was covered by the let fee. The accounts was covered by postage and petties, and then the property managers was the management fees and the plus additional fees. Now there is an underlying clause that the property manager cannot be paid less than the award.
Yep.
So if the 30% went under the award,
yep,
the owner would need to top it up. But what that did is, one, it got the property managers to look at it as though it was their own business. I've got a training session called How to Double Your Profits, and I think I had the 15 team members join up to that because they wanted to know how to double the profits of their rent roll because they were getting 30% of it. But incentives commissions is a really big topic and conversation, but hopefully you got a couple of
ideas,
thought-provoking ideas.
I need a calculator.
Damien needs a calculator, but more importantly, it's profits,
Yep,
not numbers.